Welcome back to another Anime Rambles. Today we're talking about the Saga of Tanya the Evil and why it is a really good show. Now, I will preface this with saying, it's not one of my favorite shows. I would give it maybe a 7 or an 8, but I feel like what it does really well. I will say that Tanya herself is one of my favorite characters in all of anime. Now, I don't think she's one of the best written characters by any aspect. When it comes to a list of best written characters, I don't even think she would come in top 60. But she is one of my favorites. And today I'm going to explain why I like her, why I like the show, and why I think what it does really well. So, first things first, we're going to give a brief overview of what the show is. It's an isekai, and first time I was introduced to it, I was watching Isekai Quartet, and it was the only show in the roster that I did not know, have not seen. So I decided to pause right as soon as I saw the characters in Isekai Quartet and watch all of Saga of Tanya the Evil. And I was very pleasantly surprised. So I've watched this both subbed, dubbed, multiple times. And I feel like I have a pretty good grasp, and I've seen the movie. That's what we're going to be covering here today. So, this is probably one of the best depictions of a military career and how things progress that I've almost ever seen. No shows really focus on soldiers and how they move through the ranks or what their internal mindsets are as they push through. There's shows that briefly touch upon it, but there's nothing that really goes in depth like Saga of Tanya the Evil does. The setting is Germany World War II, but if they had magic and it was a normal part of everyday life. Now, planes and other technologies still exist on top of magic. Magic is not everything. It is just another unit of infantry that is present in the military. And our main character, I'm not going to say protagonist because debatable, is Tanya, and she has these magic powers that she uses to enlist into the military because the military is looking for mages, and anyone with a magical aptitude can enlist at any age. She was born an orphan when she reincarnated, and she's basically being tortured by a being she refers to as Being X, or God, who she hates because he is a douchebag. Being X, or God, is a omnipotent being who claims to be the one true God, and does not like Tanya because when Tanya died, she basically said, "There's no reason for me to believe in a higher power. I have a cushy life in a cushy job. There is no reason for me to rely on you because I've never faced horrible strifes in my life. I've never faced famine. I've never gone a day without a meal. I don't need you." And then he said, "Oh, so what you're saying is if I place you in a situation where you need me and you're in a terrible position, you will start relying on God." And you have this back and forth dynamic throughout the show of Being X and Tanya, and they have this constant war against each other, as Tanya's only goal is to live a comfortable life. So she wants to raise to the top of the military echelon and find some way to retire. Now, this is very difficult because of basically her screwing herself over multiple times. Now, Tanya is, for her age, a genius. She is a child prodigy for all intents and purposes. This is fantastic story-wise because it allows her to raise to her high station really quickly. And she has a firm grasp on military tactics and what it takes to employ them on the battlefield. So, since she has made herself so valuable in order to climb the ranks to officer, instead, they're like, "Oh, you're perfect to lead the troops because you know all these different plans and you know how the world war is going," because obviously this is like a reflection of World War II. So she has some sort of future insight on what happens. So she uses that knowledge. Well, it's more of a vague knowledge because it's only the loose guidelines. Now, there's a fantastic theme in the show where it goes logic versus emotion. And this is perfectly reflected at the end of the show and who Tanya is and being X is. It's constantly brought up. Tanya is a purely logical being who just uses logic to get through problem after problem after problem. But she knows that not everyone uses logic. Her nation uses logic, she uses logic, and that is how the world should work. But it doesn't work that way. The world would be easier if it worked that way, and the world is not easy. Being X is a being of emotion, of belief, of praise. And he is God. He controls the world. And right at the end of the show, where Tanya thinks about how the war's going, and it's like, it's over. We win. We did it. And then she realizes, if there's one ship left with a fleet, it's not over. They're going to keep fighting. It might be hopeless. We might outweigh them in numbers. They might only have one ship left. But when it comes to feeling and heart, it's not going to be over. It's going to go right back downhill. And there is nothing she can do to stop it. Tanya's also a very sad and unfortunate being, her character specifically, because what she wants is just a cush position. But she's so intelligent, and she, in battle and like leading her troops, you can truly tell that she enjoys her job. No matter how much she may say she doesn't, she loves looking good for the Empire. She loves climbing that ladder. It's probably the only thing in her life that actually brings her joy. And when it comes to actually getting out of that military and getting that cush position, I doubt she can sit there for long. Sitting in a log cabin all alone reading a newspaper. Just living a cush life. I don't think that's what's in the cards for her. I feel like she would get so bored of that within the first 2 days. She would be right back on the battlefield. This is what she was made for, climbing a ladder, getting to the top. I don't think she could sit still long enough. Her one ideal in her life is going to betray her. And you can see that in almost every one of her actions. She is a vastly intelligent being who I don't think has the capabilities of sitting still. Now, with her culmination in two characters who foil each other is her and this character named Mary. Mary is the daughter of someone Tanya killed in the show. And they have, I want to say, a rivalry, but it's not really a rivalry. Tanya just regards her as another enemy soldier, purely logical. And she regards Tanya as the monster who killed her father. Someone purely of emotion. And Mary herself, acts on emotion throughout the movie where she shows up. Just pushing forward, trying to get that final kill, that bloodlust in her eye. And it's heavily implied that they both have, like, Being X's support. So, this whole war might be part of Being X's machinations. The Being X stuff is probably my least favorite stuff, but this character foil is great. It's logic versus emotions. It's the pure, raw, adulterated hatred of war pushing against each other. What will win? Calm, intellectual, thinking out a problem and overcoming it? Or the emotional rampage that is hatred and victory and justice and revenge? It's a great dynamic. And as the series pushes forward, we get to see the insights of these different characters who sit on the war councils or who are foot soldiers and what war means to them. This is perfectly reflected in the two endings in Saga of Tanya the Evil. There's Los 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 and there's Sen Sen no Realism. and in my opinion, they're both far superior to the opening. Los 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 is a song about war is great. War is everything. We love war. And Los Los Los, Sen Sen no Realism is war is terrible. Can my hands even hold these broken guns anymore? And this dichotomy of war's good or bad is reflected in almost each and every one of the characters, where they want to support their nations, they want to win the war, but they see the toll, the cost in everyone around them, in the hatred of those who they defeat, in the happiness of their own nation's people. Should they be doing this? Should they not? And most characters repress this ideology because it is something that is painful to think about. They have to focus on the battle at hand. As well as throughout the series, they implement brilliant military strategies and show how being smart to overcome your enemies will win most of the time. I say most of the time because it doesn't reflect in every aspect. Have I talked about everything I want to talk about? I talked about characters, talked about Tanya, I talked about the setting, I talked about it's a very serious tone, there's no comedy. It's how would I describe it? It's a little bit more lighthearted than Death Note, but not by much. It's nowhere near as good as Death Note. It's definitely worth the watch. It is very interesting to see how this child can progress in the military, being the monster that she is. If you like World War II history, this is definitely a show you should check out because there's a lot of parallels you can draw. All the nations are representative of real-world nations, and as a show itself, oh wow, it's good. It's good. I'd give it 7 or 8 out of 10. It's a good show. I highly recommend it. And I think that is about it. Well, yeah. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. Leave a comment down below if you've seen Tanya of Eve or if you're going to check it out after this video. Yeah. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.